About the webinar itself, or workshop in this case, basically, is it's the same principle as every single time. What we do with Federico is we take a look at the data set, and from our both perspectives, we talk about certain things that we think could be beneficial for you guys, some tips and tricks on how to handle the data, what kind of visuals to create, what sort of customization options to take a closer look at. And of course, do not forget that there is going to be a feedback form, right? Yep. And that is going to be delivered, or not delivered, but essentially selected through the feedback form. So make sure you fill in the feedback forms, and don't worry, it's not going to be a 20 question feedback form. No, it's quite simple, just a few questions so we can understand whether or not we're doing a good job, and whether or not you want to see something else in these sort of workshops and sessions. And once Federico talks about his opinions, and there's also one topic that Federico wants to discuss with you, which I'm very happy to hear about as well. Once I deliver my insights on the report, we're also going to have a Q&A session at the end. So this time we're going to try it a little bit differently. We're going to try to answer questions later on in a separate block, so it's a little bit easier for us. But yeah, if you do have any questions, feel free to ask them. We'll try to cover every single one of them. And if there's anything else that you're kind of curious about, you can always reach out to us. And if you forget to send in the question, where you get a question afterwards, once the workshop is already finished, do not forget that you have the option to send the questions directly to webinars@zoomcharts.com. That's one of the options. Or alternatively, also on LinkedIn, we have this amazing community for FP20 analytics challenges. You can also ask questions there, and people are going to most likely help you out. So if not, you can always try to reach out to me and Federico as well. It's not like we're going to leave you on red and just, kind of, okay, bye. So there are options. Make sure you utilize them and make the best report possible. Right, Federico?
Of course, that's the idea, to
That's
learn
the
and grow together and make sure we improve our reporting. One thing is to Boris from Ukraine, keep strong. We are there with you.
absolutely.
Ma, tell me, where in Gran Canaria are you, Mas Palomas? I know you're in Gran Canaria. Let us know where you are on holidays. Welcome everybody to another webinar. We have a data set, and I think Avis mentioned that it perhaps not complex in nature, but difficult to visualize. Okay, apart from the map, we have the country, we have the latitude, we have the longitude. Any other visualization you are going to try to use is going to be a little bit unbalanced in the numbers for you actually to say, okay, that is a problem I have in the data. That is the data. I cannot tell the people, hey, can you give me a different data? That is the data. Okay, you need to work out and think about how best I can represent that data. Okay, I'm going to share in a second. Please, Sabine, can you allow me to share? And of course, that will be if I can share.
Should be able to share. Sabina just needs to push it live.
No, I'm not seeing as usual. Okay, give me a second. I'm gonna do something because I knew
That
that
this would
we have
happen.
kind of be patient, guys, because sometimes that will happen. Why it doesn't allow me to move this? That no, it doesn't allow me to. No idea why. Okay, I cannot see.
Okay, let's wait a second. Currently, we don't see anything.
I cannot see my and it's not allowing me to move. Give me a second. I got it here. I'm okay now. I'm just working it out. Yeah. Okay, I'm sharing now. Can you see, guys?
Perfect. Yep.
Perfect. So that is the data set. I want to make a couple of points. And whether you want to get a data model from it, okay. If for your practice, you can practice how to break a flat table, make dimension and fact table. That is fantastic. On the other hand, it's not fully necessary. Okay, I have actually break it, and I also introduce a calendar table. I want to talk about this one and a couple of things I want you to realize. That one. I think the conversion target of one of the columns, okay, you have web visit and you have web visit with, sorry, with web with capital W. So it's going to appear two times. You only want to appear one time. So you have to change, in this case, I change web visit with normal W to web visit with capital W. That is one of the changes you want to do. The other one is the same, I think it's the same column. You have purchase and purchase twice, okay? So when you open the column, you will see that you have 4 or 5 or 6 different options, but only 4 are good. So you have to change purchase to capital P purchase or the other way around, okay? That's one thing I want to say. Another thing that I also did, just to get a little bit more of the insight, is I took that part, Gmail, Yahoo, all, I took it out. So now I can kind of present some information about what kind of browser or email addresses these people have. Are they Google fans? Are they all fans? Are they Yahoo fans? To get a little bit more of enhancement with the data set. And then simply what I did was to reference data set. I reference this table. I remove all the columns. I reorder the column because I like a specific way, and then I remove duplicate. Okay, and that's what I did in all of them. Why did I pick to reference instead of duplicated? In this case, because I wasn't realizing these small changes that I have to do in the main table, I decided to reference. So any changes I make in the main table, the fact table, will go through to the reference table. So I don't need to change everything in 2 different tables. Okay, conversion target and devices. In any other case that I don't want to show you a little bit about the data, I most probably will not do a dimension with them. I will let it on the fact table. Why? It's only one column, it's only 3 or 4. It's not going to do any good to me to create another dimension, and I can work it out always from the fact table. So that's a decision that you have to make when you are working with your data set, when you are breaking a fact table. Do I reference or do I copy the table? Okay. Do I get a dimension from this one column, nothing right, nothing left, and only with 3 values? That's a decision you need to make. Okay. Sometimes it's good to reference, sometimes it's better, okay, to duplicate. Okay, the other day we have an issue at work, and not all tables in Power BI service was loading, refreshing, and we were start asking why, what happened. Because of that referencing in Power BI service, the table one, the main fact table that was referring was refreshing 3 times and was confusing Power BI service. The solution was to do a data flow, but it took a team of people 3 or 4 hours to find out the solution. So it's an important decision whether you decide to reference on duplicate. There are a number of things that you need to take into account. Okay, that regarding the data set. I'm gonna share again, hopefully.
We'll get there. No worries.
I'm there. And this is the little data semantic model. I'm gonna explain properly the semantic model I have created. Okay, as you can see, everything that I don't need, I just hide it away. I don't need it. I don't want to see it because I got it there, 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 and there. So I don't want to there too. So now I am ready to work. Okay. Color palette. Guys, still we find difficulties in putting a good looking, good color report. My take is always to go simple and easy. But for your understanding on color palette, okay, there are 5 color palette. In my reading, in my research, we have categorical, 1 color per category. Be careful, I will not use more than 4, 5 colors. Okay, think about it, you have 10 colors and you put these 10 colors in every column of a country, it's gonna be too many colors. So you need how to play with it. And normally it's applied to categories. Okay, 4, 5 top will be okay. Sequential or monochromatic, we know we have a dark blue and a light blue, and it moves sequentially from dark to light, or from light to dark. We have diverging, we have a midpoint. It's not exactly gray, but it's a midpoint, and you have the same color palette, the same sequential, one dark, one light, on the other side, one dark, one light, like here. And then you have, and we know this one, but we don't use it. Okay, if I have a bar chart with 20 bars and I only want to show the top 5, but I don't want only the top 5, I want to see everybody all, this top 5, I will put it on a different color, blue, and the rest I will gray them out. What I try to do with this, or what I am trying to do with this, to call the attention to these specific bars. Okay, and then we have the alert, and we know the alert. Yes, green is good, not all the time. Red is bad, not all the time. And yellow is midpoint or medium. Okay, and Federico, do Power BI have this color palette? Yeah, it has it. We know Tableau has it in a different way, but I haven't seen this color palette, Federico, in Power BI. Let me show you. And here, perhaps, is not the best way. Let me show you in a visual. Okay, can you see that? That black and white, they always have to be in. They are coming automatically. That is your categorical, guys. Look at my example in the slide or in the, that is your categorical. That is your sequential. Any of these are your sequential. They go from dark to light or vice versa. Okay. Diverging, you can go the gray here, and then you have this and this to use diverging. And red, I got the red in here, I got the yellow here, and I got some blue that I don't have it there, but I will put it there if I need it. So these five main color palette are in Power BI. We only need to understand who they are and how best to apply them. There is a PDF document perhaps Sabine can share it with you of this presentation for you guys to keep it with you and always refer to it when you want to. Another important thing, you can find that information in the internet with no problem. Okay, just to say a big hello to my friend David, and Solar is here with me también, and David. Welcome, guys. Um, that's for me, Avis.
All right. Well, I think everybody the same way as I think. I always appreciate your insights. And to every single one of you who are listening to us, just pay more attention to how you design or style your reports, right? It might not seem very important at the very beginning, but we're going to be telling this every single time. We have been telling this every single time. The details matter. The first impression that a person gets about a report is very hard to change afterwards. So it's better to create, a good version straight away. Uh, but of course, if you're not, quite familiar with, Federico also had a webinar where where he actually showed how to use Figma to create layouts and for Power BI. Combine this with the color palettes and everything, you have a very good starting base. So just make sure you utilize all the resources. From my side, yeah, I'm gonna quickly share the screen then. So Sabina, can you push it live? Perfect. There we go. All right. So from my side, one of the things that I did, or I do every single time I open up a report, right? Not a report specifically, but a data set is, as always, I just quickly go through the Power Query, take a look at the column quality, see if there's any errors and so forth. Some of the things Federico already mentioned to you. Go through the values, see if there's any differences between upper and lowercase letters and so forth. Because at the end of the day, you're going to have different results and you're going to be thinking like, why is it not adding up? So that's one of the key points. And as much as we would love to tell you that every single time you get a data set it's going to be clean, perfect for working, it's never really like that. Most of the time you have to clean it, you have to try and create different things, you have to create new calculations, conditional columns or completely custom columns. There's a lot of work happening in the background, and this is one of the things that we also do from time to time with the data sets that we give you. We basically create an environment where you can play around and we try to see if you're noticing these things, because this is going to happen also in your work. Trust me, sometimes chasing down that one particular line, why it's not being added to a particular measure, is annoying, but it's what you have to do. But for this one, so when I went through it, right, we see there's a couple of dimensions like campaign names, campaign types, conversion targets, and so forth, data sent. But what I noticed straight away is we do have a lot of properties that allow us to define whether the email was open, whether it bounced, whether somebody clicked the link or any call to action item, where they may be unsubscribing from the newsletter if it's a newsletter, and what's the conversion, whether they did convert and whether they achieved the conversion target, basically, right? So when I see this, what I think about is this data set isn't necessarily going to be regarding different categories. It can be, but my initial thought process is that there's actually a lot of numbers. It might not seem like that because you basically have just zeros and ones, right? But everything is hidden in measures that you create afterwards. So think about it like this, right? If we think about the total number of rows that we have here, because we essentially need to understand how many emails were totally sent in total. We don't have a unique identifier because if we go through the email, theoretically it could be unique, but even from the first 1,000 rows, we can see, okay, so this is shown more than once. It's actually shown 4 times. So you have to create a mechanism that allows you to define the total number of emails sent out. And for that one, you can use things like count rows. So that's exactly what I did as well. So if I go back to the uh, report itself, you can see that total rows is a very basic measure. I'm just counting the rows, just so I have a full context of how many emails were sent out in total. Based on that, going forward, we can see those different properties: clicked, bounced, opened, which means that I can, of course, calculate every single one of those separately. So, how many emails were totally bounced, how many were clicked, how many were unsubscribing, and so forth. And Once you get those numbers, you have the total. What you can create is a conversion rate. Conversion rate is just dividing a particular aspect to the total number of rows, right? And you get a lot of different measures. And once I started to play around with the visuals in the report, the first thing that I actually did is, it might seem funny, but this is how I sometimes play around. I just want to understand if the numbers are adding up, right? So if we start off from the very basics, I want to fully understand, first of all, if I remove some of these and just leave open rate and open rate, these two should be 100. So always double check your basic numbers, your calculations, if they're giving you the correct numbers. The same goes where I have the actual numbers, not conversion rates or percentages. I want to make sure that I show total rows, that is the total number of emails, total number of unopened emails, open conversions is something I can remove, seeing if these numbers add up to this one. So small little details, but just double check if everything is, seems okay, if the numbers are correlating correctly, if the calculations are done correctly, if you're not having any outliers and so forth. So that's one of the things that I did initially when I was looking at the data set. I saw a lot of basically yes, no. Now, how do I make that information more visual, right? I need some sort of calculation, some sort of metrics that I can compare to each other. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is, of course, okay, how do I play around with the visuals? So for the visuals, one of the things that you can check out is on LinkedIn. I think, yeah, earlier today, right before the webinar, just, a slight gap there. But right before the webinar, we posted an article, a quick article, basically an insight into some of the visuals that we would recommend to use for this particular challenge. You can, of course, use whatever you want. You don't have to use those four, I think, that we mentioned there. You can use whatever visual you want, whichever makes you feel more comfortable. But at least that's going to give you some of the ideas. And somebody from the team hopefully is also going to post a link so you can go check it out afterwards. Now, when it comes to the data set as well, one of the things that I wanted to understand or kind of play around a bit more is if we go to the original table, we can see that the only reference to an actual day or something is this date of the time when it was sent. So what I wanted to kind of play around with is, and you can see it implemented right here, I also wanted to see what day of the week has the highest send rate, churn rate, subscription rate, and so forth. Because theoretically, you can use the day name, for example, as a category, and then as the series or the value that you use within it could be just a parameter, which allows you to switch between the metrics that you are showcasing here. And in this particular challenge, I think field parameters are going to be very useful because there's a lot of different metrics that you can play around with and would just allow you to very quickly kind of switch the numbers instead of creating completely new pages, new visuals, and so forth. To kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about is right here under modeling, new parameter, fields, and make sure that you're not using the original columns, value columns. You use measures, right? So what I'm going to showcase there is even these ones, right? I want to see the bounce rate, click rate, conversion rate, open rate. That's going to be fine. I'm going to keep add this as a slicer just because I'm lazy, because you could do it manually, but I'm just thinking about efficiency. Let's say it like that. So what this allows me to do is, for example, let's have it around here, make this a little bit smaller. Part of being a Power BI developer is just messing around the visuals, moving them around, and so forth. Now, once we have this parameter, the series one is no longer going to be just click rate. I'm actually going to go ahead and find a parameter and use the parameter in the series. And now it's not showing anything because, well, I need to select something. Not show values is selected. There we go. So with a quick slicer, if I would use the same principle in every single visual, so a series would be a parameter, I can quickly dynamically switch between the rates and different views. And this is one of the things that you have to understand within the reporting as such, right? You don't necessarily want to create completely different visuals. Sometimes you just want to switch one particular value that you're comparing. It doesn't mean that I still can have, for example, as a secondary series, I don't know, for example, the total emails sent. Well, yeah, this isn't going to work because one of them is going to be in thousands, one of them is going to be percentages. So I'm going to go ahead and say that the value is actually going to be the secondary axis. The secondary axis I also want to enable so people see the value. For the primary, I'm going to switch it to not zero line, but type to a percentage. And just to make it more understandable, let's make this one a line with some markers just so I can see exactly where the data points are. For example, something like this, right? And this allows me to quickly understand the total send rate versus the conversion rate. So it's one of the principles that you can kind of play around with. So parameters going to be very useful, I think, in this particular challenge, and they're going to save you a lot of space because you don't have to create multiple views. You can just kind of put everything nice and neatly into one package, into one page. If there are any particular views, of course, create an additional page and go for a different view. But this is one of the things that I would highly recommend. Um, yeah, of course, Federico, you can comment.
I'm going to, that is your visual. I left you to work with them in the magnificent way you do it. And we're referring to the pre-verification you made before showing the visuals,
Yep,
checking numbers, checking that is something that we do at work every time we get a new job and we got
yep,
some information, we verify those numbers, and when we start making measures up, building measures, we make sure they match exactly the same one. Hey, you will find quite a few surprise why these people have this number here and that number doesn't work on mine. And then you start looking what filters this measure or this visual have that I might not have and find what problem. And you might have to go to the data model and check, oh, look, this country have not this filter because it's empty in the column. The other one have a one and zero, but this country have nothing. And that's why that filter is not applying in this specific measure. You need to go back to the people because not everybody allow you to get into the databases or Power Query at all.
hmm
Okay, and you have to tell these people, hey, there is a problem here, measure are not matching because of the issue. All that Avis explained is part of the day-to-day work you do as an analyst. Okay, when this job is off the market, you say, okay, everything is matching, then you start building. But that is the first step. Your first step is to make sure you can match what they pass to you and what you are producing. And when those numbers are matching up, then you say, now I'm going to decorate, as I call it, or makeup. I'm going to do my makeup work and prepare a really good looking report. So don't forget that cleaning the data, preparing the model, verify the numbers and the measures is before anything else.
absolutely.
And if you skip that, and this challenge is for that, for you to check all that stuff, to build a flow. And when you build that flow, when you go to work, you're going to use that flow to carry on doing this greatly. Don't forget, that flow is very important.
Yep.
There was a question, but Sabine took it off.
And we're gonna go through them in the Q and A. I
Okay.
think, yeah. So we're keeping them for later. But yeah, what Federico mentioned is one of the things that the reason why you have to go through this is trust me, it might not happen every single time, but from time to time you're gonna have those reports where you're missing, for example, a cent of a euro or a single euro, and then you have to go through every single line to understand what's happening. And the trickiest part about this is if you have a large data set, if it's not a small data set, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of rows, or even not that, even tens of thousands of rows, the same thing can happen. Remember that this creates the column profile based on the first thousand rows, the initial one. You can, of course, change it to go on the whole data set. But if you have an error in one row out of 10,000, you're still not going to have a 1% here because it's zero point 0.0 something, right? So It's one of the things that as a data, basically a data engineer or Power BI the report developer, you will have to find those numbers and figure out why exactly it's happening, why it's not reading the values correctly. Maybe it's something on the source file, maybe it's something in the way you parsed it. There's a lot of things that could go wrong here. This is one reason why I love to do this every single time. I just want to make sure that what I'm showing you is not a complete lie. Basically, that's the main thing. I want to make sure that the numbers add up. Otherwise, it's very hard to create any compelling story if everything is out just all around the place, right? And also, these numbers kind of give you an insight of how big the differences are going to be like. Like, for example, we can say open rate is 16%. Okay, so that goes into two digits when it's fully looked up. If we go, for example, for bounce rate, the bounce rate is already 0.04. So putting them together, for example, in a visual, it just doesn't make any sense. The difference would be so high that this would be basically a flat line, whereas this one would be just above everything. We can even try to kind of look at it, right? So let's kind of quickly go here, open rate. So let's go open rate on series one, and then bounce rate as series two. Very informative, right? So it's one of the things that also allows you to kind of already start thinking about the visuals that you're going to be showcasing. Which metrics make sense if you compare them to each other? Which metrics make sense if you put them in a single visual? This one, well, here's a clear example. There's no reason to do that because there's no added benefit to it whatsoever, I would say. Bounce rate is something you have to basically analyze separately, or if anything else goes into lower numbers. Conversion rate, we can take a look at. Okay, so it's two, at least one digit, fine, we can go through that. Click rate, okay, we can compare these two, for example. Like, try to find a story that you can tell with the data. It's one of the things as a report developer that you have to think about. Sure, there's always going to be some metrics, KPIs you have to provide, you have to showcase. That's fine, but it's your job to define or kind of play around and figure out a way how to show this in a way where it's understandable, not just show KPIs. Showing KPIs is easy. Trust me, that's not the most difficult part about it. Creating a visual which allows you to tell a story with the KPI is something you have to play around with and just figure out how to do this. One thing that I actually, from the one-on-one session, so for every single challenge, there's an opportunity also to schedule one-on-one sessions to kind of talk about your reports. And one of the things that I've lately been telling a lot of the participants is what I've noticed, what a lot of people do is, for example, you create a visual, and this is version one, but then you decide, I want to do something completely different. So what most of the people do is just go straight ahead and delete this one and start a new one. Don't do that. Do a better one. Either you create a duplicate for the page that you had as an original, or do as I do. If you know that this visual has multiple variations, just take the original one, make a new page, add the visual right here, and just create multiple versions that you can look at and decide which one fits the use case better. Delete all the other versions when you're kind of creating the final version of the report, but don't do it when you're just starting off, because you're going to be losing so much time afterwards trying to recreate
Yeah.
something that you already had done before. Trust me, every single time I still fall in this pitfall basically, but it's something that I always recommend to kind of remember. I think, Federico, you can agree with me, we've done this
Oh
countless
yeah,
of
yeah.
times.
I got my building page. That where I building the report, and I have two pages or three that they are testing pages. I'm doing all
Yeah.
my tests on these pages. I'm doing some visual, and if everything is okay, I just can copy and bring it to the building page.
Hmm.
Okay, but I don't carry on building or changing things in the same page. So you have your building page, a report page, and then you have a couple of that they are testing, inventing, and doing other stuff.
Yeah, just playing around with different things.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've recently started to do is not just kind of creating the pages itself, right? But once I'm finished with the work, what I do is I create a separate copy of the report with all the variations that I created just as a history basically project. And then I create the one final version which I give to the customers or which we publish on the website or whatever, so that anytime that somebody tells, hey, can we do something different about the report, I can go back and say, okay, I had this, and this idea. Does any one of them work? No. Let's make a new one. Fine. But I at least had already something prepared for kind of looking into and trying to figure out what to use for that. So that's a tip that I can give every single one of you. Do not delete visuals straight away. Just make a duplicate, and don't worry if you have like 10 different duplicate pages in the beginning. That's fine because you're not going to be submitting that report. This is for when you are building. You're trying to figure out what works, what not. Also, when you're building the reports, trust me, every single one of the developers has a page which usually has just a basic table and some cards just to try to understand if everything is correctly being calculated. This is especially annoying and almost always done when you're doing something with dates to understand whether the time period is being selected correctly, where does the end, if all the calculations are taken correctly. So don't be afraid of creating multiple pages when you're building a report. You don't have to squeeze everything in a single one. When you're trying to do something specific, do it on a separate page, make sure everything works, and then add it to the original sort of publishing page, right?
If I may,
Sure.
don't think that your client is going to tell you what visual to put where and how. Okay? And so you're going to have to work your imagination about how best to you or what visual is good for this data I'm presenting. The client is not going to tell you. They don't know, or they most of the time want everything. Okay? So we learn a lot of things in preschool, that meaning before we go into work, that then we realize has nothing to do with reality. Okay, we have heard about gathering requirement from the client, picking this, picking that from them. If we don't know, go back to them and ask. Forget about it. They're gonna give you the data, they don't even know what they want yet.
Oh
Okay?
yeah.
You start producing, you start sending today, oh yeah, can we? And now start making the changes and giving you the KPI, giving you everything that you wanted, but you have to throw yourself into the open of the abyss, okay, for them to start seeing, okay, I'm telling you, oh, I want this, I don't want that, I want this way. Can you do that? So remember, you initiate the work, they will start changing it.
Yeah. Because in Latvian we have a saying, "Apetite rodas ēdot," which basically translates to "the appetite raises when you start eating." Right? It's the same principle. When you give them samples, they start to get some ideas on how this could be done. But if you straight up ask them, "So what do you need there?" They're gonna be like, "Well, I need some charts that show me this, this, and that." And that doesn't really help you because you're like, okay, but does it need to be a column, a line, an area, a map? What do you want there? A good looking report is the most common answer. So it's your job to play around with different ideas and show them, okay, we could do this way, or we could do it this way. Which one is better? They might come back and say, hey, can we do a mix of these? Sure, let's make a completely different version of it. That's fine. Don't worry about it. There's always going to be iterations and everything. But yeah, field parameters is going to work. Duplication pages are going to be excellent as well. As for the visuals itself, you also have a latitude and longitude, of course. So you could use a map visual for it. For the map visual, one of the things to remember is you got to make sure that when you're creating it, by default, the clustering distance is going to be, if I say it's going to be on 40, which means that these clusters are going to be very separated. And if you add like a donut on top of it, you can see it looks messy, right? So don't be afraid to play around with the settings. And for the map, one definitely setting that you want to adjust is going to be the clustering distance. This tells the map from how big of an area I'm gathering the information. So whenever I zoom in, you can see I get the split version, but at least when a user starts off, he's not presented with 50 different circles or bubbles, right? So that's one of the things that I just wanted to pinpoint there. The other thing, colors. You can see I have, for example, a palette, and the nodes circle is the same color as one of the slices. Avoid this as much as you can. Make it something neutral. So it just fits there, doesn't worry about the other colors. So that's going to fit there. What else? For the timeline, one of the things that I kind of covered is you have a typical hierarchy. disregard that it's in Latvian, so that's a year, quarter, month, and day. You can also create, for example, create a calculation for a week. I have an intermediate step in between. So play around with those. Custom sorting is what I also utilized here. So for example, if we go and create a calculation for day name, I'm gonna base it on the original one. So what's gonna happen is it's gonna go in alphabetical order, right? Because it's text. So in order to define that Monday is always going to be first and Saturday or Sunday is going to be the last one, what you need to do is make sure you also have a calculation for the day number. Either you do it through Power Query or you have a separate date table. I know my data model isn't great, and it's basically non-existent, but I'm just showcasing different ideas. So as soon as you have a weekday, that allows the Power BI to understand that there's a number representing the day. And what you do afterwards is take the day name, sort by column, find the day number, and you can see that now Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So now there's a chronological order to things. So don't miss these points. It's very simple to kind of forget about them, but they give a lot of benefit to the users because they don't have to figure out which day of the week it is. So things like that. In order to get, for example, the day names, for example, because you can see it's not a calculated column. I did this on purpose. Don't forget that Power Query has an amazing amount of features that you can use here. And one of the most simplest one is if you ever need anything extracted from the date, this is what you do. You go to the Power Query, you make sure you select add column, not transform, because transform means you're going to change the original column. Add column means you're going to be adding an additional column. Find this part right here, daytime, click on date, and you can take any part of the day out without any additional calculations or formulas. So, for example, if I wanted to see which day of the year it is, I can just click on it. I get a column and it tells me exactly which day of the year are these emails sent on. So, very simple, very efficient. And this is what I did for the name of the day, the name of the day. You get tongue twisters sometimes, and this happens to me sometimes as well. So utilize the resources that you have here. As far as the other visuals, yeah, timelines, combos, donut charts work perfectly. You can play around with the scatter plot, see if you can find any outliers or correlations. Just remember one thing, right? Whenever you are using a scatter plot, correlation does not mean causation. It's a very important thing to understand. A quick example, right? A lot of people like chocolate. So, for example, if you do a survey in Belgium where there's a lot of millionaires or Switzerland, a lot of people like chocolate. But if you put it on a scatter plot, the amount of millionaires and the amount of people who love chocolate, there's going to be a straight kind of correlation, right? But it doesn't mean that if you like chocolate, you're going to become a millionaire. It has no correlation causation there whatsoever. So make sure that the numbers you put there or are comparing to each other actually make sense to be compared. And if you don't know what to compare, don't forget about your amazing resource, the internet. Just Google what type of measurements could I compare when looking at email campaign analysis. What sort of KPIs can I calculate, and so forth. There's a lot of resources. But yeah, I think we have a few more things that we need to cover. We
Just one,
have,
just one thing, Avis.
yeah, sure,
Guys, you see the facility of Avis playing with his visuals. Yeah, it is normal. He is day on and day out with them. But
exactly.
that's how you are going to actually understand this visual. You have to actually work with them. You need to go to every single well in the format pane, in blah blah, and see what happens when you click it. Okay, don't just throw the visual and leave it like that. Play around, see what happens. Okay, because the more you play with it, the more you will understand, the better visual you will build.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's the only way on how you can get better. It's just playing, and trying new things, trying new formatting options, settings. Trust me, the things that me and Federico have learned over the time, they don't come from just knowing them. No, we made a lot of errors. We made a lot of good visuals. and we combine the experience and try to figure out, oh, I remember I did this for one project. I could actually take the same idea, put it in this one, but add something on top of it. And that's how you just create more and more variations and ideas for the next one. I'm guessing, Federico, you have something similar as well, some sort of a folder where you have just
I think that
random reports.
correct. When we go to visualization, everything basically has been done. There are so many great developers in LinkedIn that where we live, okay? And they bring one new idea and the other guy a new idea, and you bring a new idea to a point that what we are now is how this visual can we make it a little bit better? Because
Yeah,
there is nothing to invent. You can play around, you can try to twist it here and put that there, but everything is done. Is now what do you do next? Okay, well, let's bring variations of this. Let's see what happens if I do this. And you start playing around. Okay, what I call my happy hour on Friday, where I used to get 2 beers on my deck and play for 2 hours doing the most stupid thing with the visual, just to try them,
yeah,
to see what happens. Okay, so that's what we do now. We try to see how much or what else we can get from those visuals. What is hidden in the format page in this visual that you can click and bring something new. Okay,
absolutely. And as much as we would love to say that every single time we create something, amazing, most of the time it looks like trash.
oh, yeah.
And you're just sitting there like, I mean, maybe, but most likely not.
I got very funny case that all the report that I put on LinkedIn that I don't like, people love it.
That's the
And I
funniest
share it
thing.
with some of my friend with David. I can't believe this post has 25,000 views. I don't like the report, but people love it. So don't be afraid to say, oh, I don't like it. You don't, but people might actually like it. And then you realize that you build something really good.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay? So don't be afraid.
Just don't be afraid of playing around with things, right? Tastes are completely different. There's gonna be people like Federico. There's gonna be people who love it. There's gonna be people who think like, it's not the greatest job. Every single use case comes with something. So just make sure you play around, learn something new, try out new things, and don't be afraid to fail, basically, because you learn from it. All right, let's go for a Q&A. See, we have an amazing slide. Yeah, yeah, perfect. All right, San. I wouldn't say difficult in terms of measures, but somehow challenging on what visualizations to pick. Yeah, this is one of the reasons why, like I said, first of all, I just laid out the measurements to figure out what exactly can I compare, and then based on that, I try to figure out, okay, I can compare these values. What type of visual is the best for that? Is it going to be on a time or category base? So different ideas. I need some help regarding item number 5. Can we view campaign performance in map visual? I'm having difficulties to visualize the click rate on our Zoom drill down map visualization. Click rate. So if you showcase, mm, I would just say simple as that. Remember that every single thing that we have given you as an idea doesn't mean that it's necessarily great. And I would say showing the map for click through rates isn't the best option. I would probably connect it between another visual. So have a map which shows you, for example, the campaign categories, but then have something like a timeline next to it to kind of compare the values.
Remember, visualization is that. Okay, let's make a little difference between visualization and design. Visualization is
Yeah, of course.
what visual I use to represent the data, and then how to clean and let that visual look good, the visual itself. And design is the overall, okay, view of the report. Remember, guys, for you to understand what visual is better for this view or for this number or for this data.
Jonathan, will the video be recorded for later viewing? Unfortunately, I have to leave. Thanks for the session. Absolutely, our pleasure. And yes, the every single session is recorded. So tomorrow or the day after, you're gonna have a follow-up email, which is gonna give you the link to the recording, and you're gonna be able to rewatch it afterwards. And that is available. Actually, yeah. Actually, let's quickly do it. For those of you who don't know yet, let me just quickly open up ZoomCharts website. Let's go here. Sabina, can you push the screen? Yeah, thank you. So if you go here to resources, webinars, and if you scroll down, there's actually the whole archive. Every single webinar me and Federico have had together is going to be in here. The top 5 announcements where we talk about specifics of the report, the every single workshop we hosted, all the webinars are here, and it's an amazing resource that you can utilize. I'd say one of the things that I would probably recommend for newer audience and for even intermediate and more advanced people, just go through the top 5 announcements, because a lot of the things that we discussed there isn't new. It's a lot of repetitive things that people miss. Just few design options that are missed, the styling of certain visuals or things like that, and those are most common mistakes. So it's a great way on how you could avoid it. All right.
Do you have time for that?
For the line chart, is it possible for you to show how you did that? For
I
the
think
line chart, this
the
one, or what exactly? I
one
would
with the
say
middle, the one in the middle, I think.
this one, yeah. So what I did is I enabled the conditional formatting, but if that's not needed, you all you have to do is basically make sure you have category, just maybe a single one. I have in this case 2 different series. So the series are values. One of them is the parameter that switches, and the other one is a static total amount of emails sent. And for every single series, you have an option to individually customize it. So one of them has been set type as line, the other one is a column. I can also make both of them lines, but it looks weird, and I'd say it doesn't suit the case, because in one case I'm comparing a count versus a percentage. So I want to also visually distinguish that type of information.
Okay, I was wondering, claim cementation. Chakra, I'm sure you can get something about it. The data says not fully for that. Okay, but I'm sure some kind of client segmentation can be obtained, seeing the campaign type, the emails. So these people tend to go for this one more than the other one. But it's for you to investigate, not for us to tell you. Okay, I'm sure you can get some customer segmentation there.
Yeah.
Okay, just try to find out how will you approach the question. If I got this information, what can I do too? And I actually will actually need to think about it and work testing a little bit to see how best to do it. But I'm sure that you can actually get some kind of client segmentation with the data you have.
Yeah. And don't forget one thing, you can enhance the data sets as much as you want. So if you want to add another column and create it on your own rules, go ahead. There's nothing that tells you cannot do it. All right. Should we create an individual date table or use the date from the fact table? I usually use a separate date table. Of course, use a separate date table. Like I said, I'm just lazy, and I didn't manage to create it. I was just playing around with few ideas. With
Bimar,
Federico already, yeah, go ahead.
don't, that question is not to be asked. Always. Always.
Always.
Remember, Bimar, they are already prepared
Yeah,
in code that you just put it on the in a blank query and you have a full day calendar in 10 seconds,
yeah.
20 seconds. Okay, but the question is yes, 100%.
Can you explain this question number? Can we view the click-through rate over time by different conversation type? Do you mean conversion rate? Um, it could. I think we have conversion. Yeah, it's a typo. Human error happens. I'm sorry for that. I apologize. It's meant to be conversion.
Oh yeah, that's probably me. Sorry, I come from Spain. Sometimes very difficult for me to put all that into English and make these typos. But you are 100% correct.
No, no, this was done on purpose. Like I said, this is a real life scenario, right? We gave you a question and you have to figure out what we meant by it.
Thank you, Evan, for the help. No,
But I
Boris,
mean,
you're
it
right.
does
Sorry
happen,
about that.
right? No, but I mean, it does happen, right, Federico? When you get
Oh yeah.
sometimes the question list from a customer, you're like, "What do you mean by this? There's no such thing." Oh no, we meant this one. Well, couldn't you just write it like that? It's
No,
a
but
real life
hey,
scenario.
on the other hand, Boris is really reading the question. So
Yeah, right.
excellent, Boris. You pick up the mistake. Thank you.
That's all good. That's why we are here. That's why we have different channels on how to reach us. If you see anything, just ask us. There's nothing bad that's gonna happen from it. All right. I think we don't have any. Yeah, we don't have any more questions.
No more
Federico,
questions.
about the giveaway.
Okay, remember, guys, we are now. Sabine is gonna put your a form for you to complete. Only 4 questions, but if you fill it up, okay, you can win a pack book. Okay, there are 10 different books to pick from. Okay, and if you are the winner, okay, I will write to you, tell you that you are the winner, and ask for which book do you want to. Pack will send it to you. It's an e-book. It's via email. It's an electronic book. But remember, it's just 4 questions. Please fill out the form. It help us to understand you and to know what we can do better. And you have a 10% chances of winning if you complete the form.
Of course.
Just using
And if you answer all the questions, you're gonna get a 15% chance.
50%. Thank
Now,
you,
just
Jamal.
yeah, I'd say the main thing is remember, guys, that the forums are not there to bore you. They're there to help us understand if what we're doing is what you need, right? Or the sessions need to change somehow. Do we need to take a different approach? Stuff like that. We understand if what we're doing is useful. Because trust me, neither me or Federico are here to just kind of, I mean, we can of course chat for an hour. That's not an issue for us, but we want to make it useful for you guys.
Yes, I think that's important. Regarding Boris' question about the question in the challenge, guys, they are guidance more than compulsory. Okay, there is no
Yeah,
an obligation for you to actually reply any of the question. If you want to pick a different angle to your analysis, you are very welcome.
of course. This is why we say should, not must. Right? You can go with a completely different route if you want to. Like I said, you can enhance the data set with some new dimension and analyze it based on that. Go ahead, it's your data set. We give you the basis, but you can adjust it. All right, I think we covered the webinars. No webinars, yeah. The giveaway. We covered the Q&As. Everything else has been talked about. Don't forget to quickly scan there, register for the next webinars, and don't forget to attend the top 5 announcement. What else? For the submissions, please do not leave them for the last day, just as a human ask, right? Because then we have an overhead of trying to verify every single one of them. And it's also very difficult to give you guys feedback if, I have to go through like 30 reports in a single day.
Exactly. Yes, please. If you leave everything for the last day, you are driving a few people mad in gathering the information, trying to come back to you. And sometimes because of that rush, we make mistake and your report might be missing. Okay? So try to leave it for the last 3 days and then you start from there. You guys get together and say, okay, now you know everybody for the last day. It's a nightmare.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to understand, right? If I have to go like 30 reports one by one and I have other tasks to do as well, of course, during the day, it's I can't put in the same amount of effort going through every single one of them as if I could slowly go through them, play around with all the items, and just give you more insights on what I'm thinking about it. So what I usually say is make sure you submit the first version as soon as you can, just to get initial feedback, and then you can create a next version. We don't limit you on how many versions you can submit. Now, listeners, don't see that that's already the last chance. No more after this.
No more, you give me too many chances, Alessandro.
All right, guys. From my side, that's gonna be it. Thank you so much for attending. I hope it was interesting, informative, and most of all, fun. But yeah, Federico, from your side, any last words?
No, thank you very much for coming again. I would love to see your entries in the
Yep,
challenges. And remember, the challenges group is also a place for you to ask questions, to let us know, I would like to have a data set about it, or I have this data set. Can we use it in a challenge? Okay, the more idea you bring to us, the better for everybody in the community group. But remember, the community group is not Federico, it's not Avid, it's all of us together.
exactly.
Okay, so you are FP20 analytic as much as I am.
Absolutely. And yeah, one more thing I just remembered. If any one of you know a great data set, make sure you give it to us or send it to us. We're
Please,
not gonna say no just because it's not ours. As long as it's interesting and it's not covered by commercial licenses and so forth, we're okay with anything. Anything that has an opportunity to be a great data set to have as a challenge. We're more than open to that. So if you have any ideas, if you know some great data sets, send it to us. We'll make it a next challenge. There's no issue with it.
well, I think that is for us.
Yeah, that's it for us. Thank you again, everyone who joined in, and have an amazing rest of the day. And I'm looking forward to your submissions. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.